So we'll continue with the locomotion, movement and locomotion students. Here, question number 62, we are continuing. Sliding filament theory of muscle contraction was given by Huxley and Huxley. Question number 62, we know that the theory of sliding filament, that is sliding filament theory to explain the mechanism of muscle contraction is given by Huxley and Huxley. Question number 62, answer is C, students. Now, question number 63. Question number 63, which is true of muscle contraction? Which is true of a muscle contraction? A is sarcolemma becomes permeable to calcium ions. See, sarcolemma is nothing but plasma membrane of the muscle where it will receive a neural signal from the nerve, motor nerve unit or motor end plate. It will not become permeable to calcium ions. Actually, it will receive the stimulation and that will be passed into the muscle, that is sarcoplasm, cytoplasm of the muscle. There, the remaining changes, what we're going to see, the question number 63B statement, what it says is sarcolemma becomes permeable to sodium ions. 63, answer B is right, students, as the membrane permeability for the sodium ion will increase. So sodium ion will move inside, potassium ions will come up, that will send the stimulations into the sarcoplasm. So question number 63, answer is B, sarcolemma becomes permeable to sodium ions. Now, question number 64. During muscle contraction, size of A band remains the same. The A statement, that is size of A band remains the same. It is right, students. Now, B statement, size of H zone becomes smaller. This is also right, students, because as the contraction takes place, the I bands will move towards the center from the both side. Sarcomere size also decreases and I band size also decreases and H zone becomes smaller. B statements right. Now, the C statement, size of I band decreases. This is also right, students. During contraction, we're going to see the I bands will decrease, H zone will decrease, sarcomere will become smaller, and A band remains same. So question number 64, during muscle contraction, all these events we're going to see. So the answer is D, all of the above. Now, question number 65, which are involved in muscle contraction? Muscle contraction, what are the elements are involved? Option A is calcium and magnesium ions. Now, only during to involve in muscle contraction, calcium and sodium and potassium, where these are initiating. So the sodium and potassium are involved in the conduction of impulse. This is option C is right, students, which are involved in muscle contraction. Sodium and potassium is the right answer. Now, question number 66. During strenuous exercise, that is during vigorous exercise, what glucose is converted into? During strenuous exercise, glucose is converted into glycogen. It's wrong. Actually, glycogen is a polymer of glucose. Pyruvic acid is also wrong, students, because the end product of glycolysis is pyruvic acid. Starch is also polymer of the glucose. So during vigorous exercise, we're going to see the anaerobic breakdown of glucose into lactic acid. So that will accumulate and that will cause us the spasm, muscle spasm also. So the question number 66, answer muscle fatigue is caused by the accumulation of lactic acid. 60C, answer is D, lactic acid. Now, question number 67, immediate source of energy for muscle contraction is. So, immediate source of energy for muscle contraction, what we're going to see the question number 67, A is glucose, B is a GTP, and C is creatine phosphate, and D is ATP. So question number 67, immediate source of energy for muscle contraction is ATP. Answer is D, students. Now, question number, you know that question number 67, ATP is a universal energy packet. It will be stored always in our body. It is ready to use kind of energy which will be utilized. Now, question number 68, which one yields ATP required for muscle contraction? So the excess of ATP is stored in high energy kind of a compound. That what we're going to see, that is immediately, this will make the immediate ATP available to the muscles. which among the following options in a question number 67? A is glucose. Glucose needs to be completely metabolized, then ATP is going to produce. So it is not immediate source of energy or ATP. B, that is GTP, nothing but guanosine triphosphate. This is also not the immediate source. Creatinine phosphate is the immediate source of ATP or energy for muscle contraction. So question number 67, answer is C, students, creatinine phosphate. Now question number 68, which one yields ATP required for muscle contraction? Which one yields ATP required for the muscle contraction? Just about question we have discussed this, students. 68, answer is again the creatinine phosphate, sorry, creatine phosphate, that is B is the answer. Now question number 69, EDTA injected into muscle combines with the calcium ion. Stop contraction, cause contraction, slow down the contraction. Question number 69, answer is stop contraction. Why, students? Because calcium ions are required for unmasking the troponin unit and make the tropomyosin exposed and bind to the myosin head region. As the calcium ions are binded during muscle contraction will stop immediately. EDTA is a chelating agent. We're going to get bind to the calcium ion and stops the contraction of muscle. So question number 69, answer is A, students. Now we'll go to the next concept of this chapter, that is topic 4, skeletal system. Skeletal system, 70th question, students. Ribs are attached to, we know that the ribs are dorsally attached to uh, the vertebral column, and ventrally they are attached to the sternum, students. Here they are not given vertebral column, but sternum is not is given, students. So the answer is B, sternum. Scapula is a triangular where it's going to form a pectoral girdle. Clavicle is a collarbone, what we call it as. Ilium is a part of the hip bone, that is what we call it as coxal bones. So answer for the question number 70, ribs are attached ventrally to the sternum. Question number 71, intervertebral disc are found in the vertebral column of, that is in between the vertebra there will be intervertebral disc will be present, where it helps in the partial movement of the vertebra. This is the characteristic features of the mammals. So intervertebral disc are found in the mammals. C is the answer, students. Now question number 72, 72, which one of the following shows the correct sequential order of vertebrae in the vertebral column of human beings? So we need to know vertebral column, how the different types of vertebrae are named. So the arrangement of these vertebrae in the vertebral column are as follows. We know that the vertebral formula, that is, we're going to see the cervical, thorax, lumbar. Then what we're going to see is a sacral and coccyx. So question number 72, order should be cervical first. We're going to see the cervical, C7, H12, L5, S1, that is fused. It is again coccygeal is also one. So answer for the question number 72 is D, students. The right order of the vertebra in a vertebral column: cervical vertebra, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, coccygeal. See, answer for the question number 72 is D is the answer, students. Now, question number 73, recognize the figure and find out the correct matching. So this is the diagram of a skull, where a skull is consists of the total, what we're going to see, the cranium and the facial bones. Totally 29 bones are present. Here they have mentioned all the facial bones in the diagram, question number 73, and they are asking about the only cranial bones. You know, the cranial bones are the total 8 cranial bones are present, where we're going to see the frontal. A is a frontal, 2 frontal. Then B is question number 73. A should be frontal, students. Question B is temporal bone. B is parietal bone. C is temporal bone. D is occipital bone. So A, B, C, D. What it reads is A is frontal, B is parietal, C is temporal, D is occipital. Such order where we're going to find in the option C. If you see, option C is the answer for the question number 73. So in a question number 73, we need to find the cranial bones, frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. Total 8 bones. What we're going to see in question number 73. Answer is C. Now 74. Question number 74. Recognize the figures, find out the number of bones in specified regions. That is A, B, C, D, E. They've given the whole of a skeletal system classification, branching like a tree they have made, and some of them they have mentioned, some of them the what they have given the A, B, C, D, E, F. We need to find the bones present in the respective uh, options what they have given. Question number 74. What we have to find is, students, A is an axial bone. You know that axial skeleton, the total number of bones in human body is 206, where axial is 80 and appendicular is 126. Axial bone, where it includes the skull vertebral column, where it is total of 80 bones. Weight what we're going to see in appendicular skeleton, total of 126 bones. In the B, what we're going to find, then they are asking skull 3. As I said in the earlier last question, skull is made up of total of 29 bones. Now the next vertebral column, we know that 26, sternum is single, ribs is 12 pairs, that is 24. What we're going to see, then cranial bones they are asking. Cranial bone, as I mentioned already, 8 bones what we're going to see in the cranium. Hyoid they are asking next in the E, that is 1 bone we are going to see in hyoid. And ear ossicles, you know that the total 6 ear ossicles are present in the human skull, that is malleus, incus, and stapes. The small tiniest bones in our body is stapes. These are the 3 bones, malleus, incus, stapes. Total of ear ossicles present are 6. So if you see the skeletal system, the axial skeleton A is 80, then appendicular skeleton B is 126, skull is made up of total C, that is 29 bones, and the cranial bones what we're going to find is D is 8, hyoid bone what we're going to find is 1, and ear ossicles F is 6. So correct answer for the question number 74 is C. Now question number 75. The hard protective outer covering of the outer covering the hard protective outer covering for the brain is called, what we called the hard, this brain box, or what we call it as a cranium, and it is made up of 8 bones. Skull is total, what we have is 29 bones, where option A what it reads is skull is made up of both the cranium and a facial bones. Whereas B, what it reads, skull and made up of 14 bones. No, facial bones are 14, students. C is cranium and made up of 14 bones. It is wrong. So question number 75, D, cranium made up of 8 bones is the right answer. Now question number 76, the front part, facial region of the skull is made up of, as we have discussed already, the skull is made up of total 29. The facial bones include 14, and the what we have, the cranium includes 8. So the facial part of the skull includes 14 skeletal elements. So question number 76, answer is the students. Question number 77, read the following statements and find out the incorrect statements. You need to find incorrect statements, students. First one, hyoid is present at the roof of the buccal cavity and included in the skull. So right, hyoid is present in the skull but not in the roof of the buccal cavity. So A option, it is hyoid is a one bone where it is not joined to any of the bones and present towards the base of the buccal cavity, what we will find. So statement A is wrong, students. Now statement B, the skull region articulates with the superior region of the vertebral column with the help of 2 occipital condyli. So we know that the occipital bones as a two condyle where it articulate with the first vertebra, what we call it as atlas. Statement B is right. So that's what we call the human skeletal is a dicondyle, that is two extensions will way joining to the atlas. The skull region articulates with the superior region of the vertebral column with the help of two occipital condyli. B statement is right, students. C statement, first vertebra is the axis, what it is mentioning. It is wrong. First vertebra is the atlas, which articulates with the occipital condyli, not the axis. Second vertebra is what we call it as axis. So statement C is wrong, student. Now statement D, sternum is a flat bone on the dorsal midline of the thorax. Sternum, it is a wrong, students. Sternum is a flat bone, right? But it is present on the ventral midline of the thorax, not on the dorsal side. Dorsal side, we're going to have a vertebral column, whereas on the ventral side, we have sternum. Sternum is a flat bone on the ventral midline of the thorax is the right statement. D is wrong here because it is telling dorsal midline. Question number 77, E statement, vertebral column is dorsally placed. It is right statement. So here in the question they are asking is incorrect statements we need to find. Incorrect, only two statements are right, students. What are those? B and E are right, and A, B, D. Sorry, A, B, AC, not B, AC and D are incorrect statements. So A, C, D we will find in option C. Question number 77, option C is the answer, where incorrect statements are A, C, D. Now question number 78, main framework of the trunk is constituted by, we know that the thorax is covered with the rib cage and diaphragm below we have, and trunk do not have ventrally any bones, whereas dorsally it is supported by vertebral column. So main framework of the trunk is constituted by the vertebral column, because skull is going to form the part of head, and sternum where it is a part of thorax. Ribs are also the part of the thorax as protective structure. The main framework for the trunk is constituted by the vertebral column. So question number 78 B is the answer, students. Question number 79, each vertebra has a central hollow portion through which spinal cord passes. This hollow portion of the vertebra is called as neural canal, where through which what we're going to see the spinal cord is going to pass and form a peripheral nervous system connect with the various part of the body. So question number 79, the hollow portion of the vertebra which is present allowing the passing of spinal cord is called as neural canal. Question number 80, select out of the functions of the vertebral column from the following. So out of the functions, what all, select out of the functions of the vertebral column from the following. A, it protects the spinal cord. It protects the spinal cord is right. Then B, it supports the head, vertebral column, right. C, it serves as the point of attachment of the ribs, right. Dorsally ribs are attached to the vertebral column. It serves as the point of attachment for the musculature of a back. Yes, many of the muscles are attached to the vertebral column on a back side. Right. Question number 80, all the below A, B, C, D are the functions of vertebral column. So answer for the question number 80 is D, students. Now, question number 81. This is about a rib cage. Question number 81, match the following rib cage it is. You need to match the column 1 with the column 2. We know the whole of 12 pairs of ribs which are present in human, 24 ribs which are there in the 12 pairs are divided into three types, that is true ribs, floating ribs, vertebochondral ribs. What are true ribs? True ribs are the ribs which are attached ventrally to the sternum and dorsally to the vertebra. Such ribs are called as true ribs. And we know that the first 7 pairs, 1 to 7 pair, is a true rib. Next, what we have is a floating ribs. What are floating ribs? Floating ribs are the what we have is vertebochondral. Sorry. floating ribs are, they are attached only to the sternum, whereas they are not attached to the, sorry, floating ribs are attached only to the vertebra and they are not attached on the ventral side to the sternum. 11th and 12th pairs are the floating ribs where they are not attached to the sternum ventrally. So that's why they are free to move. So they are called as floating ribs. So B is 3 students. Third one is a vertebrochondral ribs. Vertebrochondral ribs nothing but the 3 pairs, also called as a false ribs, what we call them as 8th, 9th, and 10th pair, where it is dorsally attached to the vertebra. Ventrally, they are attached to the 7th rib. That's why we also call them as a false ribs. 8th, 9th, and 10th pair dorsally attached to the vertebral column, whereas ventrally they are attached to the 7th rib. So question number 81, answer is A1, B3, C2. That is, answer is B. Question number 82. Question number 82, match the column 1 and 2 and choose the correct combinations from the option given. This is again about the rib cage students. Question number 82. A is true ribs. We know that the true ribs are attached to the vertebral column dorsally and to 7th rib ventrally. Wrong. So true ribs are attached to the vertebral column dorsally and to the sternum ventrally. So that is A is 3, B is 1. That is false ribs nothing but attached to the vertebral column dorsally and to 7th rib ventrally. B is 1. C, floating ribs do not connected ventrally, where they are connected only dorsally to the vertebral column. So same it is above question. Question number 82. Answer is A3, B1, C2. A3B1C2, answer is B students. Now, question number 83. How many phalanges? Phalanges nothing but the digits, the bones of the fingers. How many phalanges are present in a normal human adult? So, how many phalanges are present in a normal human adult? Question number 83. So 14 on each. Total 14 plus 14, 28 in the forelimbs and 28 in the hind limbs. Total of 56. Question number 83. Answer is D, that is 56. Now question number 84 students. Recognize the figure and find out the number of bones in a given parts of the body. So here the given part of the body, we need to find the number of bones. Sorry. Recognize the figure. Question number 84. Recognize the figure and find out the number of bones in a given parts of the body. So appendicular skeleton they have given. Appendicular skeleton. Each limbs we know that A, total of appendicular skeleton has 126 bones. So that limbs, each limbs they have 120 bones, and the griddles, you know, the griddles, the joints between the appendicular to the axial, the griddle has a 6 bones, and pectoral griddle has the 4 bones, and that means 2 on each side, one scapula and one clavicle on one side. So the scapula plus clavicle of both the shoulder, total of 4 on the pectoral griddle. Pelvic griddle, that is coxal bone, each side 1, that is total 2. So question number 84, they have given about appendicular skeleton students, total of 126 bones, what we are going to see in appendicular skeleton. Each upper limbs totally consist of 120 bones. Each limb griddle consists of the 6, total what we will see the 6 bones. In that the pectoral griddle constitute the 4 bones. The 4 bones names are actually scapula, 2 scapula and 2 clavicle, and pelvic griddle names of the bones are the coxal bone, where it is in turn made up of fusion of 3 minute bones, what we call the ilium, ischium, and pubis. So togetherly we will call it as a one coxal bone. The pelvic girdle totally made up of two coxal bones. So answer for the question number 84, A is 120, B is 6, C is 4, D is 2. So answer is C, students. Question number 85. Each griddle is formed of two offs. Each off of a pectoral griddle consists of. So each griddle is formed of two offs. Each off of a pectoral griddle consists of two bones. Pectoral griddle, as I said, it is made up of two bones, one scapula and one clavicle. So pectoral griddle made up of two bones, one scapula and one clavicle. Answer for the question number 85. B is the answer. So four bones is all togetherly what we can take. But here in the question they're asking each half of a pectoral girdle consists of one scapula and one clavicle. Two coxals what they have given in a C option where we're going to see in the pelvic girdle, not in the pectoral girdle. 85 answer is B, students. Now question number 86. Match the column 1 and 2. Choose the correct combinations from the option given. So correct combinations from the option given we need to find from the column 1 and column 2, the shape of the bones they have mentioned and where it is present we need to find. So cup shaped bone, what we're going to see is the cup like structure where it is covering the ankles, that is patella, the kneecap, what we call it as cup shaped bone which is covering the knees, what we call it as patella. U-shaped bone is a hyoid bone, as I said, they're not connected to any of the bone where it is present base of the buccal cavity. Long and slender bone. Clavicle is the long and slender bone, or what we call it as a collar bone with the two curvature it will be present. So 86 C is 1. Thin and flat bone, what we will see the rib. So A is 2, students, B is 4, C is 1, D is 3. Answer for the question number 86, B is the answer. Now question number 87. Pelvic girdles consist of. Pelvic girdle, as I said, it is consist of a coxal bone. Totally, that is one on each side. Hip joint where it is going to form, or also called as a hip bones. The total number of bones in a pelvic girdle are two coxal bones. A is the answer. Question number 87. Now question number 88. Recognize the figure and find the correct matching. Question number 88, you need to find the correct matching. So this hind limbs, especially the question is about the pelvic girdle. We know that the pelvic girdle is formed of the two coxal bones which are formed by, each coxal bone is formed by the fusion of the three minute bones named as ilium, ischium, pubis. So you need to find the labelings. Here, the coxal bone, the upper part, what we call it as A is called as ilium, and the ring-like structure which is present at the B, what we call it as ischium, and the middle one, what we call it as the pubis, where it is going to join and form a pubic symphysis structure in the pelvic region. C is a pubis, and D is a sacrum. If you see the sacrum, sacral part, what we're going to see, not complete, it is the part of a sacrum they are showing, and E is coxal bone. Altogether, this E is called as coxal bone. So A is ilium, B is ischium, C is pubis, D is sacrum, E is coxal bone. Question number 88, students' answer is A. Now, question number 89. How many curvatures are present in a clavicle bone? Just now, as I mentioned, clavicle is a collar bone, or it's also called as a what the beauty bone. This collar bone has curvatures. Total of two curvatures. The bendings in the clavicle, what we're going to see is a two curvatures are present. So, answer for the question number 89 is B. Now, question number 90. Question number 90 reads, scapula is largest flat bone of the pectoral girdle. situated in the dorsal part of the thorax between the. We know that the scapula is a triangular flat bone which is present on the dorsal side. This is situated between what, this last thoracic and third lumbar vertebra. Is not the answer, students. Last thoracic, third lumbar, what we have is kidney ventrally. Fifth thoracic and seventh lumbar is also not the answer, students. We're going to see the scapula will be present between the second to seventh rib. It is present between second to seventh rib. So answer for the question number 90 is C. Scapula is situated right from the second to seventh ribs, which are present dorsally and they are triangular structure. Now, question number 91. The dorsal flat triangular body scapula has a slightly elevated ridge called. So this ridge-like structure where it is present, question number 91, it is called as a spine. The ridge is called as a spine where it's going to form a acromonion processes. Question number 92. Spine of the scapula is projected as a flat expanded processes called what it is called as acromion process. You know, the scapula along with the clavicle where it is going to form a glenoid cavity. This cavity is formed by the extension, a spine like extension which is present. It is going to form a processes. This processes forming by the spine of a scapula is called as acromion process. Now, question number 93. Recognize the figure and find out the correct matching. Question number 93. Recognize the figure, find out the correct matching. So this upper limb along with, that is the forelimbs along with the griddle they have given here, mainly the griddle and as well as the forelimb bones you need to mention, students. So you need to label, you need to identify the label. We know that the A is clavicle or what we call it as the collarbone. A is clavicle and B is a triangular shaped bone, what we call it as scapula. C is radius. C is a radius and D is ulna. You know, ulna extension or ulna processes of what it is going to form, the crocoid processes of ulna where it is going to form a elbow, and E is metacarpals. E is a metacarpals. So answer should be A is clavicle, B is scapula, C is radius, D is ulna, E is metacarpal. So answer for the question number 93 is C, students. Now question number 94. Acromion process articulate with the, as I said, you know that it is going to form a pectoral girdle. Acromion process is a pectoral girdle. It is the articulation between the forelimb and the acromion process what we're going to see. The forelimb is made up. Acromion process articulates with the collarbone of the clavicle. Collarbone of the clavicle where it will make a glenoid cavity that help in articulation with the forelimbs. So acromion process articulate. Acromion process is a part of scapula where it get articulate with the collar bone and form a cavity what we call as a glenoid cavity. So question number 94 answer is C, students. Now question number 95. Question number 95. Pectoral girdle is made up of. So pectoral girdle again it is made up of, one pectoral girdle is made up of one clavicle, one clavicle, and one scapula. One clavicle and one scapula. Pectoral girdle is made up of one clavicle and one scapula. That is C is answer, students. Now, question number 96. Match the column 1 and column 2 and choose the correct combinations from the options given. Wrist bone. Question number 96. Wrist bones. We know that wrist bones are called as carpals. Thigh bone is femur. Ankle bones are tarsals. Palm bones are metacarpals. digits are palingers. That is, A is 2, B is 5, C is 4, D is 1, E is 3. So answer for the question number 96 is C, students. Now we'll move to the remaining questions you can solve. We'll move to the next and last portion of this chapter, that is disorders of a muscular and skeletal system. So what are the disorders we're going to see in a muscular and skeletal system? We will discuss. So before that, we need to discuss about joints, students. Few questions on the joints we will discuss. Which of the following option is correct? Question number 120. Which of the following option is incorrect? Which one will incorrect? We need to find. Question number 120. Question number 120. Hinge joint between humerus and pectoral girdle that is given. This itself is incorrect, students. Hinge joint is not present between pectoral girdle, which you will find between tarsals. It's tarsals region where we're going, carpals region in joint, what we're going to find. A is incorrect. Pivot joint between atlas axis and occipital condyli is right. Gliding joint between carpals, right. Saddle joint between carpal and metacarpals of a thumb, D is right. So question number 120, incorrect one is A. Question number 121, knee joint and elbow joints are examples of. Knee joint and elbow joints are, students, in joint. They are in joints. That is, knee joint and elbow joints are in joint, students. So that's why question number 120 is wrong. 121 answer is D, students. Now question number 122. Question number 122. Which of the following statements is true? Question number 122 is B. That is, head of the humerus bone. A is head of the humerus bone articulates with the acetabulum of a pectoral girdle. Head of the humerus articulates with the acetabulum. Acetabulum is going to found in the pelvic girdle, not in the pectoral girdle. So B statement reads correct, students. Head of the humerus bone articulates with the glenoid cavity of the pectoral girdle. That is a shoulder, the joint where in the shoulder we will find the head of the humerus articulates with the glenoid cavity of the pectoral girdle. So question number 122, answer is B, students. Question number 123, match the column 1 and column 2. Choose the correct combinations. Question number 123, cartilaginous joint, where we will see cartilaginous joints shows the limited movements. Fibrous joints, no movements, where we will find in the cranium. Cartilaginous joints we will find in between the digits as well as the vertebral column. C, that is synovial joint, shows the considerable movement. Question number 123, answer is C, students. Now we'll move to the last concept of this chapter. The disorders of muscular and skeletal system. Question number 139. Remaining questions you need to discuss. You can go through it. If you find doubts, we'll discuss later. Question number 139. Which one of the following is not the disorder of a bone? So we know that the arthritis, osteoporosis, and rickets are the disorders of the bone. Atherosclerosis is a blockage of the coronary arteries. So atherosclerosis is not the disorder of a bone. Question number 140. Which of the following disorder affects the neuromuscular junction leading to fatigue, weakening of weakening and paralysis of skeletal muscle? Question number 140 is myasthenia gravis. Question number 140. Weakening. Myasthenia gravis is answer, students. That is the neuromuscular junction will be affects and that will lead into the fatigue and weakening and paralysis of a skeletal muscle. We're going to see muscular dystrophy, nothing but the facial muscles are not properly working. Osteoporosis, nothing but the bones will become less denser and walls will starts to form. That's why we call it osteoporosis. Tetany, nothing but the rapid spasm of a muscle. Question number 141, students. decreased levels of estrogen is common cause of, that is we're going to see in a female especially, the decreased level of hormone estrogen during the menopause, that will result in osteoporosis, that is density of a bone will be reduced. This the bones will start to appear pores. Arthritis nothing but inflammation of a joint, we know that the students, and gout nothing but what we will see, the accumulation of uric acids in the joints. Tetany is again rapid spasm. Question number 142. 142 reads, gout is due to accumulation of uric acid crystals. Gout is due to accumulation of uric acid crystals. Question number 142, answer is C. Now, question number 149. Column 1 and column 2 we need to match here, students. Column 1, what it reads is first one, muscular dystrophy. Muscular dystrophy is going to be seen as the genetic disorder. Myasthenia gravis is a age-related disorder. Sorry, myasthenia gravis is also a kind of, sorry, A is a genetic disorder. Myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune disorder. Osteoporosis is an age-related disorder. Tetany is wild contractions, as we have discussed already, and gout is inflammation of joints. So answer for the question number 143 as they have given A. A itself is the answer, students. Question number 144. Progressive degeneration of skeletal muscle, mostly due to genetic disorder, occurs in. So progressive degeneration of skeletal muscle, where we're going to see in the, it's a genetic disorder, what we will see is a muscular dystrophy, whereas myasthenia gravis we'll call it autoimmune disorder. So progressive degeneration of skeletal muscle, mostly due to genetic disorder, occurs in muscular dystrophy. So answer for 144 is B, students. Question number 145. Gout that leads to arthritis is associated with abnormality of. We know that the gout nothing but accumulation of uric acid crystals. Uric acid crystals due to what? Purine. There is a disorder in purine metabolism. Purine metabolism, if it is not correctly metabolized, they will result in the formation of uric acids, and they will be accumulated in between the joints. This condition, what we call it as gout, students.
Sir,
Sir?
stop.
Uh, okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.